does The Mandalorian survive this movie? And you can't say depends.
Um,
Force with Friends is back with friends this time. We have everybody back. It's been a few week hiatus with kind of the busyness of summer and such. This always seems to happen every year, and it's the best time of year as far as my opinion goes when there's fun stuff to go and do. But we're back to talk a little bit about Star Wars. So last week I talked about Star Wars Celebration announcements, a few big ones. We've already talked about Maul Shadow Lord. So today we're talking about what's up next, which is the Mandalorian and Grogu movie, Star Wars back on the big screen. So it'll be 2026, which will be 7 years since we've seen new Star Wars on the big screen. 6.5, really. It would, because it's in May of 26. But man, it's kind of crazy that it's been that long, right?
Yeah, I'm excited. There's always just a significant different sense of excitement when there's a movie coming out in theaters. So,
yeah,
I know it's still a little ways off, but I feel like I'm kind of starting to get there where it's just like, oh, it's going to be a Star Wars movie in theaters. So,
yeah,
starting to get pretty excited about it.
Yeah, a lot of anticipation, Ryan. I mean, we're probably getting a trailer during the NFL season.
We have to.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Isn't that what they usually do? They'll throw it like during a football halftime or something like that, because there's like 100 million people watching.
It's the best time to advertise.
Yeah.
When's D23? Is that in August? I bet they drop a little bit of something at D23 as well, when they get all the big names there.
Strong possibility, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really ramping into this fall. We're just going to learn more about it. It'll be interesting to see if any leaks come out. But what we're going to do, we're just going to talk about what we know about the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. We'll talk about what we hope to see, what we think we'll see, speculation. Maybe we'll start off talking about the box office side of things, since we've already kind of touched about the excitement that comes with this. I guess we'll talk about what we know, and then we'll get into that. So I'm just going to share a couple things here. This is just IMDb's page here. So we've got the movie coming out May 22nd. 2026. Pretty excited about that. We've got some photos here from Celebration. So obviously Pedro Pascal there, but Sigourney Weaver's going to be in the movie. So that's a big name, right? Like Star Wars doesn't usually go and do this.
Yeah.
And there's Pedro Pascal dressed up like the Princess Bride.
That's what I was thinking.
There's the two guys right there. But yeah, I mean, that was D23, I guess, last year's that it was showing. But there's the.
So that was the last one, 2024 or 2023?
That was whenever they had. I guess it was last year's D23. I know they do
every 2 years.
Okay, so maybe it was 2023 is when it showed them together. And that may have been when they announced this movie as well. But this is really cool. It's just like a little CGI Mando and Grogu there.
It's a great still shot, though.
It is really cool. And so we do know there's been a sizzle trailer come out at Star Wars Celebration. I just watched it, kind of this video that someone had up on YouTube. I'm not going to share it on here because I don't want to get shut down. I'll let that channel get shut down. But pretty much it's not a lot as far as story goes, but you see Mando breaking into an AT-AT, an AT-AT walker, on a planet that looks like Hoth. It's funny how Star Wars always goes back to those tropes that it always has. Sand planet, snow planet, green planet. So this one we're going to Snow Planet, it looks like. And you got Mando breaking in, busting up some imps. But also you see Sigourney Weaver at like a diner table with Mando and with Grogu. It's almost like the Peli Moto deal. It's kind of like the vibes that it gave. She seemed much more with it than Peli. But you got her hanging out with them. And then you get that shot with, which is what our thumbnail is. You get the shot with Zeb, Mando, Grogu, and it looks like they're in like the old school Razor Crest, like that style of ship in that shot. So I mean, again, it's not a lot, no plot points really. I mean, he's fighting Imperials, Zeb's there. That's not really anything that's a big stretch. but it's all cool stuff to see. I mean,
Yeah.
makes you wonder what he's doing, taking out an AT-AT Walker, right? What are they still doing with those anyways? We're like 5 years past the end of the story, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
It is.
I like that we don't know much. I hope it stays that way. I hope there's no big spoilers.
Yeah.
Because there really isn't a whole lot plot wise that we know about this project. So, and I like it that way. So I hope it stays that way.
Yeah, because I know, like, because like a lot of movies, you'll have people outside taking photos and stuff. I don't think there's been any outsiders taking photos on this. I haven't seen anything, so I kind of like you said, no spoilers or anything.
Yeah, the only time that really happened too in The Mandalorian was when they were filming that in season 2 with Boba Fett, Fennec Shan, Mando on is it what's it called?
Typhon.
That planet. Typhon, yeah. Because everyone thought it was like just the 501st going out and playing in the park. And it was actually them filming
That's funny.
Mando. So yeah, that typically doesn't happen when it comes to this show. I know the Acolyte had a lot of that. Andor has had that just left and right, but it was so like vanilla looking sets and stuff. You couldn't really make anything of it as far as how Andor was. But Mando has seemed to kind of not do that, which is good. So yeah, we have virtually no plot points. We know Mando gets sucked into fighting this Imperial like remnant, which we all kind of expected it was going that way anyways. That's where the whole show is built up to. But looking at it, it's going to be going into, I guess, May 22nd. I'm not sure how that falls, but it's probably Memorial Day weekend, if I had to guess, because they usually try to release big action films around Memorial Day weekend.
It makes sense.
I mean, you think this is going to break the billion mark?
I think it's possible because it's the How long is it going to be? Like 7 years?
6.5, yeah.
6.5 since Rise of Skywalker, and people have been wanting it. And I think people have just been really wanting Star Wars back in theaters, a new story. I mean, because we got Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith. So I think, and it's going to make people want to go 2, 3, 4 times probably. I will.
Yeah,
we need it back in theaters, so I think it'll get close.
Yeah,
I'll contribute.
Yeah, definitely. It will be interesting to see how people respond to another kind of standalone movie that's not, main saga. Yeah. Because some have done well, some haven't. So it'll be interesting to see how people receive The Mandalorian. If they still just kind of view it as like it's a TV show that made a movie, or if they really embrace it as because again, like the re-releases recently have done really well. I think people want to go to a theater and see Star Wars. Yeah. So I think it'll start off good. It'll be interesting to see how it carries on once people have received it. But I guess that depends on the movie. So
it's that first weekend. I guess since it's Memorial Day weekend on Tuesday, you'll probably get the numbers as far as how it goes. Yeah. I think it'll be a big opening weekend.
I think so.
And Kevin, like you said, if the buzz is there, then obviously like everybody's going to be going. And then the next week, kids are getting out for summer. So like parents are probably taking their kids, or at least depending on where they are. But for the most part, within 2 weeks, kids will be getting out for summer. I'll for sure go a couple times. I'll toss $30 into the bucket for the Mando and Grogu movie. We're probably $100 between the three of us in towards getting to a billion there. But no, Ryan, kind of what you said. It's been 6.5 years. The Force Awakens, they did not expect that to be $1 billion movie. I don't know if y'all remember. Everyone was super excited about Star Wars, but I don't think people knew that people were that excited about Star Wars. And so The Force Awakens shows up, and it was like a top 3 release of all time. All films made $1 billion. It was 10 years since Revenge of the Sith. You've got obviously Harrison Mark and Carrie Fisher coming back for it. I'm sure that helped. But I remember being at City Walk at Universal Studios the day that it came out, that Thursday, for The Force Awakens, and seeing people lined up for hours outside, like ready for it to happen. And then I went and watched later that night. And that's when you kind of knew like, oh, this was a big deal. I think a similar thing will happen for Mandalorian movie. Pedro Pascal's as big of a name as there is on the planet. He brings Sigourney Weaver in. Rebels fans will be there to watch Zeb. All the kids are going to want to see Grogu. Like, the merch lead up to this is going to be, I mean, they are going to go overboard on toys, stuff like that. So I
that's
think
the thing.
It's $1 billion.
Because Mando and Grogu, like they've hit the cultural saturation point, right? Like, everybody knows who they are. So, like, even if you're not a big Star Wars fan, there's a good chance you might be like, oh yeah, it's this cool Star Wars thing that everybody talked about at one point. I do think there will be a lot of casual people who show up for it because it's fun. I think it looks fun. I think it'll be a fun movie. And I think that will be a big selling point going into the summer. And I think even the Star Wars fans who like to complain, they're still going to go see it. So,
I had a question for you guys about that.
Okay, yeah.
So I don't know if you guys remember, but for The Force Awakens, the day the pre-order for the tickets went up, every website crashed. Because everybody was on there. I remember I was worried, and I drove to my theater after I couldn't get it to get my ticket. Do you think that will happen, or do you think maybe some people will wait for the weekend reception?
I don't think it'll happen at this point in time because, I mean, as big as I think it is, I don't think it's crash, Regal's app type of thing. Especially because now these apps have, like, they've made it past all those Avengers movies. They've made it past, Top Gun a few years ago, like big ticket movies. I think we're past that, but 10 years ago, I think it would have for sure.
Yeah, true.
Like how Taylor Swift broke Ticketmaster, like that type of thing.
I do think, depending on where you are, though, I think if you're trying to hit a first showing, I think it'll probably sell out, though.
Easy.
Probably won't around me, but it might. We'll see.
You're probably in the clear. I feel like you're probably in the clear. But at the same time, like, I was lucky enough to watch The Force Awakens in Orlando with a bunch of friends, and we were all in college and not very forward thinking or very I would say responsible at the time, for sure. And somehow we came away with tickets for opening night right near UCF as well. So I guess it was because there was a bunch of college students around, and so, like, no one was thinking about it. But yeah, so I don't know. I would be willing to say where I am. Currently, I've got like 4 or 5 huge theaters around. I'll be able to pick one and make it work. Kevin, you won't have an issue, I don't think, either. You've got quite a few options as well, though. So that's why I wonder if you'll have an issue. But yeah, I think it's going to make $1 billion. I think the story. Let's just talk about what we think the story. Like, obviously, Imperial Remnant. But what's the end game for this? Is it going to be something? Because you got two sides to this coin. Jon Favreau and Kathleen Kennedy. I mean, Kathleen Kennedy is like a, hot button topic with Star Wars. I don't think she's handled everything perfectly since everything took over, but I also don't know a human being on Earth who has handled everything perfectly in their job. So again, not that I'm happy about everything, but who knows? I would have messed up as well. For sure. For sure. You got Jon Favreau on the other side. He's very big picture film type of guy, right? Like, he knows the Star Wars stuff, but at the same time, he's going to be doing a big budget film. But then over on the corner, you got Dave Filoni, who knows everything about Star Wars that's ever happened.
Yeah.
I think the two of them probably keep him in check as far as what we get thrown in. But I also think he's going to put some, like, legit lore into this as well. So I'm interested in the balance. Like, what do you think? Is it going to be a broad appeal movie? Do you think it's going to really dig into Star Wars? A little bit of both? I mean, I don't think Dave Filoni has a bone in his body that will let him not put something in this. They won't let him take over. But, I mean, there's going to be something there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, like you said, a broad appeal. They definitely want to bring everybody in. They want it to be an easy story to consume, not one where you have to do your homework. But I think it might connect a little bit to Ahsoka and Thrawn. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. I think you have to see some connecting pieces somewhere. But like you said, I mean, Favreau, I mean, he's a big movie guy, right? Like, he's done some pretty successful blockbuster movies.
Elf.
Right, that's what I was thinking of. It's a classic. To be fair, is there a more classic Christmas film? But I mean, like, you think, I mean, he's got a huge repertoire of things he could say, well, look what I've done, right? I mean, he knows how to make a movie. So I think I do think Filoni will be kept in balance, kept in check a little bit. I think it's going to be. I don't know that it's going to be super lore heavy. I kind of expect a really fun kind of like action family film vibe to it. I do think there'll be some things in there for the fans to be like, ooh, yeah, look. For sure. But man, the connecting part, I just don't know, because we don't really know timeline wise where this fits in with the other pieces that we do know. I mean, does the movie start before Thrawn comes back? Does the movie start after he's already back? Does he come back at the end of the movie and that's like a big cliffhanger? Like, timeline wise, there's like, because I know a lot of people think Thrawn's going to be the big bad guy, but maybe he's not, right? Maybe he shows up in the last act and just throws everything into chaos, and that's kind of where the movie finds its ending. I don't know.
An end credit, maybe.
Yeah, that's
would be interesting. I'm not sure about. Yeah.
That would be interesting if they did a Marvel style end credit scene.
Yeah.
My thoughts on it, as far as like where the story's connecting, somehow they've got to get Mando back in, right? Because last time we saw him, he was retired with Grogu. Yeah. Not going to be retired by the time we get to this movie. Very much involved with the New Republic because he's got Zeb in there. And I want to say, what's her name? Sigourney Weaver character's New Republic as well, from what I saw.
Yeah, she's. I think she's the commander of that Adelphi squadron, which is like Carson Teva's squadron.
Yeah. So he gets in with there. So they're on the trail of this Imperial remnant, because that's what Carson Teva and Zeb are in on. Last we saw in Mando season 3. Mm-hmm. So Kevin, I kind of lean towards what you said about maybe Mando's on the hunt to see like, what is this threat? Can we get to the end of this chase? And then they get to the end of it, right? They get the cheese on the mousetrap, and it is Thrawn, and he shows up at the very end. And I think that kind of is like, oh my goodness, what happens next? And then they're going to go catch Ahsoka in 3 months, and then everybody's going to watch Ahsoka season 2. I think they're going to be pretty tactful about this, and I think that's where the story goes. I think broad appeal, Thrawn at the end, if anything. But then I think if Dave does get any lore, it's got to be like Mando teaching Grogu, like kind of the Mandalore lore, if you will, because we got the what's the big beast in the water? The
Mythosaur.
Mythosaur, right? You got the Mythosaur in Mando season 3. Really weird if you don't get any kind of continuation of that whole deal. It makes you wonder, like, I feel like Bo-Katan's going to be in the movie and stuff, but Katie Sackhoff's kind of like being hush about it, like, oh, they haven't asked me anything, stuff like that. Which I think is code word for yes, I'm going to be in it. But I think you could get kind of, if you could run, as far as your budget goes, you got to pay a lot for Pedro Pascal. You got to pay for Sigourney Weaver. You don't have to pay a whole lot for the armor. You don't have to pay a ton for Bo-Katan. Like, I think you can bring in these faces we know and love from The Mandalorian. And also not have to pay a crazy amount to make it work. And that will also make your film more successful. So I think we have, like, Mandalore might be where the Dave Filoni lore comes in. And then kind of hand the ball off to the Ahsoka series at the end. I don't know.
That would make sense.
I like how Ryan dressed up for the occasion, by the way. Kevin and I are completely unprofessional. It took me 18 minutes to notice. But
I did notice it earlier.
I was looking at the action figures over your shoulder the whole time.
I almost put a big Mando Funko Pop behind it, but I was like, that might be
that'd have been good.
Oh, man. Talking about the Mandalore stuff, like, I do want to be careful, though, because I felt like season 3 of The Mandalorian became the Mandalorians, and I really feel like it took away from Mando and Grogu. Like, they really got, and I really want this movie, the way season 1 was, the way season 2 was, to be really fixed heavily on them. Season 1 was amazing, right? Like, it's new, it's exciting. They did a really good job of like pushing the story forward with these new characters. Season 2, they did a really good job of bringing in like some pretty big names. I mean, you get Luke Skywalker, for heaven's sake. But then you had Ahsoka in there. You had Boba Fett in there. But that season still very much felt like it was about Mando and Grogu. I did not feel like season 3 was super about them. So I do hope
Lizzo and Jack Black, though.
Yes, that was my favorite part. Loved the appearance.
Big cameos.
But no, like if they can stick to keeping this movie about Mando and Grogu, I think it'll work no matter who else they throw in. As long as they don't get sidetracked with, hey, look at all these other people that we have. Because I do think Mandalorian's been in its best when it's been about that duo. So I don't know. That's my only concern, and it's just because of season 3.
Yeah. One thing I think, and one thing I've always kind of said, Kevin, when we talk about this, and I'm not unique to this, a lot of people have said this, but like the idea that at the end of all this, the Mandalorian is not Din Djarin, it's Grogu, right? Yeah. Like that's what it's going to end up being. Yeah. But now that they're calling this movie The Mandalorian and Grogu, it makes me wonder, man, I may have been wrong this whole time. I don't know. But I really like the idea of where that was going. So unless y'all have any final stuff to say on this, I think I have a fun idea for where we can move to close this out, okay?
I do have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you think, what's her name? Kane? The Dr.
Elia Kane?
Yeah. Is she going to pop up? Because...
Oh, yeah.
She was like spy in the Republic at the time. Yeah, I feel like she's got to have a pretty big role, I would think.
She's also kind of a big name actress now as well, since The Mandalorian.
Katie O'Brien, is that her name?
Yeah.
I think.
Sure.
She was in Ant-Man. She was in Ant-Man and some other things after that.
She's in some movie lately where she's jacked, and that's the one I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
And then the only other question I had is how much that Shadow Council, like how much do they know about this plan to bring Thrawn back? Coming. Do they know what's going on right now, or is Morgan just kind of out on her own?
So that's kind of where I think we pick up is they're on the hunt for the Shadow Council and trying to get to the crux of that. And I do think Elia Kane, like you said, I feel like she definitely plays a role in it, just because they set her up that way, kind of closing things out. So all right, here's what we should do.
All right, let's hear it.
All are going to name something that we hope we see in this movie. And then also something that we hope they don't do.
Ooh, okay.
If that works out. I can start with what I hope they don't do if y'all need some time to think, because I put you on the spot. So I hope in this specific movie, unless it's done Rogue One-esque, where it's at the very end for like 3 seconds, I hope they do not have Luke, Han, or Leia in this movie. I do want them to show up at some point in this whole story, because you can't beat this new empire without those 3, I don't think. That they all couldn't have been on PTO when it was happening. But I hope in this particular movie, you don't throw those 3 in, because then the movie turns into The Mandalorian and Grogu and Han and Luke and Leia. So in this one particular instance, I hope they don't let that happen. I think it sucks the air right out of the room, unless just at the very end they're like, hey guys, this is a big deal, we've got to call someone, and they do like kind of a throwback to Rogue One where the callback is to Leia. That would be really cool. Like but that would just have to be the very end of it, because that didn't steal from Rogue One.
No,
the way they did it. So you'd have to do it right.
Or what if they do like in Rogue One when the Ghost shows up and maybe the Falcon shows up and you just hear them talk really quick, like, hey, we're here.
Yeah, that would be good too. Yeah. I would like that.
I wouldn't mind that. But don't put them in if it's not needed. Save it for another story.
Yep.
I agree. But
I think my don't want. I don't want this. Ahsoka was kind of billed as like a Rebels continuation, so I was good with that. I don't want this to be that. As much as I know Hera's here, like we know she's present, we know Zeb's going to be in it. I don't want it to become. I don't want there to be a ton of focus on her and her part and thing. Not that I have any issues with Hera. I just don't think she needs to be everywhere doing everything in everything. So while I don't mind seeing the Ghost Crew, and we haven't really seen Zeb, so I don't mind seeing him, I don't want it to become about necessarily all of them.
I don't think it will.
I don't think it will, but that's one thing I don't want to see is a big plot point that maybe follows Hera. I feel like we followed her a lot, and so again, nothing against Hera. I just don't feel like I need to follow her for this movie.
You hated Hera so much.
Okay. Listen.
Ryan, what do you want to not see? What do you not want to see?
I don't think it's as big as your guys's, but I don't want them to put too many familiar faces in. I don't want it to overflow with too many people just to do it. Yeah. Just keep it simple. Just give us the characters that are necessary to the story, and I think it'll be good.
I agree.
I couldn't agree more.
Very to the point, because that's where Mando season 3 kind of aired in our opinions. I would say, at least mine and Kevin's, is it too many mouths to feed in that story. Yeah. So yeah, I agree there, and I don't think any of those things will happen. Honestly, like as far as large scale. Do y'all think we see Ezra in this movie? I just thought about it when you mentioned the Ghost Crew. Like, you think Ezra shows up?
I guess it goes back to what Kevin said then, when this takes place, if it's before, Ahsoka. So, that's a good question, because Thrawn
had to be Ezra, towards the end.
Yeah, because if, like in Ahsoka, it's when Hera's like facing that council, like Carson Teva brings up like the Mandalore thing. And so that's already happened at that point, which is the end of season 3. But they're not back yet. I don't know how long it takes to travel from hyperspace from another galaxy. Is that days? Is that weeks? Like, I don't know. I don't know the time frame for that. But at that point, at the end of season 7 of Ahsoka, they know about the Mandalore stuff. Like, it's in the past. I don't know how long in the past. But all that season 3 stuff for Mandalorian's already resolved before Thrawn gets back. So I don't know what the time frame is going to be with that.
It'll be interesting to see how they dress that up, because I don't know if they really knew at the time either.
But to your question, I don't think I'm ready for Ezra to be a big part of this story. I feel like he has his time coming. But again, I want this to be the Mandalorian and Grogu. So I wouldn't mind seeing him, but I feel like he's got his time coming. So I'm not too worried about that.
What do you think, Ryan?
Something else. What if, maybe, because I know they're trying to see how this goes, if they're going to do another movie or another season. Do you think Moff Gideon was just a clone, even though he said he wasn't, and we might see Moff Gideon in this? I don't know. I don't want to overflow it, like I said, but I'm
adding that to my don't want to see list. They brought him back 2 times too many for me. So
no Moff Gideon.
I'm not crazy about him as a villain. I mean, I know like that's kind of, if you're a wrestling fan, like you're supposed to not like the bad guy, right? That's how bad guys are. But man, he did good at it. But like, you just keep bringing him back and bringing him back and bringing him back. It's like eventually it loses the appeal when he just keeps still being alive. So yeah, I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah,
possibility.
I agree.
So things we do want to see. Okay, so one thing, main thing I want to see. And maybe I'm crazy for this, but I want to see this movie gear us up towards how is this Mandalorian story ending. It's not that like it needs to end here. But what's our direction here? Because season 3 actually could have wrapped up the Mandalorian and Grogu story, technically, right? Like there wouldn't have been the ending I preferred, but it could have. So this movie needs to do one of 2 things. It either needs to, 1, wrap the story up, or 2, put us on a clearly defined crash course for how this is going to go down. So I think back to the Avengers, right? How they kept building up to how it was all going to end. And obviously they did a 2-part finale, essentially, right? The Infinity War and Endgame. But I think it needs to be very clear at the end of this where this Mandalorian story is going, because it's 2 huge names, and you can't just kind of keep the 2 biggest names in Star Wars in limbo. So
that's true.
Clear direction on where it's going, because we haven't really had that lately when it comes to Mando. And there is, just on the speculation side, you never know with the Pedro Pascal contract situation. So where's he at there with him? So that's what I want. I just want, some clarity on where this is going. Ryan, what about you? What do you want to see?
I had no sound for like 30 seconds. Sorry, I
have
no idea what you said. Go ahead. Go ahead, Ryan.
I could tell. That's why I went to Ryan.
It's like, what's happening right now?
You could go, Kevin. If
I don't know what anybody said. I just had no sound for like 30 seconds.
I thought
that's why Ryan's going.
Oh, okay. I like yours, actually. We do definitely need to figure out if this is going to be it or where it's going to go, because it's just going to, like you said, or as we mentioned earlier, they're trying to figure out if this movie is a success, what they're going to do at that point, if it's going to be a movie or another season. And I know they have that on hold right now, obviously, because they want to figure out what are we going to do. So I wonder what the ending is going to be like, open-ended, or like another season 3 ending with them just at their little homestead.
Yeah, we need something.
Yeah, I think the last thing you want to see is these two characters who've been really, really good get kicked along to the point where it's not interesting anymore.
True.
People love stories where people change, right? Like that's a defining aspect of what draws people to stories sometimes, is when you get to see people grow and change. And we've seen both of these characters do that and do it together. And it does feel like they're at a point where they can move off now, or at least soon, kind of like you were saying. So yeah, that would be terrible if they just drag these characters along until the point that there's not anything new about them. And it is just kind of the same old thing repeated, because then that's when you kind of lose your fascination with the characters. And so, yeah, I do think they need to start pointing them towards an endpoint soon.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You don't want to milk it for too long,
right?
No.
Right. I think back to, like, you look at some really great TV shows that maybe went a season too far. You know what I mean? Like, I think Game of Thrones, I didn't watch that, but I think that's one of those examples where they went past their source material. And I don't think people were necessarily happy with how it ended, or at least it was kind of polarizing.
That's what I read.
I think you look at, like, what was the How I Met Your Mother, like, sitcom. They went one extra season, and the last one was terrible. Parks and Rec went one extra season, and it wasn't necessarily incredible to end, right? Like, you can go down all these TV shows that got greedy and went one season too far.
Yeah.
And you need to, and also, by the way, nothing against any of the rest of Star Wars, but were it not for Mandalorian and Grogu back in 2019, the franchise maybe crumbles at this point. Like, after Disney, like,
struggling.
Just very, like, money wise, they were fine.
Yeah.
But, like, fan base wise, there was a lot of bad stuff going on as far as the fan base goes. And that kind of brought everybody together. So I don't think you treat your top intellectual property within your intellectual property with that level of disregard. So I do think we get something there. Last question I'll throw out here before we wrap up, and we'll probably ask this again, Lord willing, in 48 weeks, but does The Mandalorian survive this movie?
Oh.
And you can't say depends.
Wow. That's a good question. I don't like it.
I'm going to say yes.
That's what I'm thinking too, because Filoni's movie is his own movie is supposed to be a Mandoverse movie, connecting everything.
Yeah.
So
it's gonna wrap it up.
I don't. Yeah, I think he survives. I don't know that he survives this whole plot line. But really? I part of me wonders if they've left room, like, if this movie does really well, there's some sort of big follow up with him, or if not, then they axe him in the TV show. So,
well, what you were saying, Will,
that
earlier,
no.
Will, you said that the Mandalorian is Grogu, so maybe that's what it will be.
Transition,
passed on, transition to Grogu.
I can see that happening. I just don't know if it's this movie. What do you think? Do you think he's going?
Me or Ryan?
Me. You asked the question.
So I think he survives this one. I think I'm thinking through my business lens of Star Wars right now. I think they're using this as a big, gigantic billboard for what Ryan mentioned, the Dave Filoni story that he gets his own movie, this New Republic movie.
Yeah.
I think this is the billboard to Ahsoka, which is the billboard to the next Mandalorian season, where you get this side of things, which is the billboard to whenever Dave's movie comes out. I think it was supposed to be was it 27 or 8? Was that the original? I think it was 27 because Rey movie was 26, but it's not now. So 2027, 2028, you're going to get the tie it all together of this story, and that is when I think Mando bites the dust. I think he goes Iron Man style, taking Thrawn out, because you're going to bring back this biggest baddest villain, or like I guess bring this biggest baddest villain into this story. Really, he's always been around Star Wars. You're not kind of bringing him back, you're bringing him into this story. Then I think your biggest baddest hero has got to be the one that takes him out. And there's some merit to say that the Mandalorian is the baddest of them all when it comes to non-Force users. I mean, I would take him over just about anybody. So, I think he goes out in a blaze of glory, taking out Thrawn in about 3 years or whatever it is, 2 or 3 years, and people leave the theaters in tears.
I hope he gets a good death, like you said, blaze of fire. But you know what I was thinking since, was it episode 4, The Village? Season 1, I was thinking, I wonder, or I hope it wraps up him going back to the village where that woman was.
Oh, that would be cool. Yeah.
I always wanted that. That's what I was thinking.
Goes back and he just takes his helmet off, and that's the end.
Yeah, and
that would be
helmet
awesome.
And black screen.
Hey, that would be great.
That'd be a good send off.
Yeah. I don't think it will, because then you got to draw people back to that. They're like, who the heck is that woman? You know what I mean? Because like a lot of people, you're looking at box office people, and it's like, what just happened? Who are all these country bumpkins that are in this place? So
true.
Yeah. But as a fan, I would enjoy that. I still think they have to solve the Pedro Pascal dilemma. So eventually he does have to go away.
He's a big paycheck.
He is a big paycheck.
Yeah.
And he
Especially
knows it.
now.
He's a big paycheck, and he knows
Man's
it. So
everything now.
But I am very excited about the prospect of this movie, as are both of you guys, I know. So it's going to be really fun. Like, as we said, as this ramps up into the fall, more talk about it. We get some more concrete stuff on it in the spring. It's really going to start getting exciting, like February or March, when you're able to buy tickets. How cool is that going to be? And then less than a year, we'll be watching the movie. So that was a lot of fun. Just kind of looking ahead to Star Wars on the big screen. Kevin, what do you got?
I have a question.
Okay.
Because we haven't seen it yet. Do you think we get like a new droid companion in this movie?
Did I mention this when I was talking about watching the trailer?
I don't think so.
The little chicken droids from Galaxy's Edge are in it.
Oh, the BD droids?
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah. Well, they're similar, at least. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're supposed to be in the movie?
They're in the movie, yeah. I don't know if you mean like having like an R2-D2 BB-8 type thing. I
feel like there's got to be a droid traveling along.
R5's in the trailer.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, R5 is in it with. He's kind of like going back behind Zeb and Mando. And Grogu. So I think it could be R5. It could be those little droids. But
I like that.
Yeah, they'll do something to
we gotta have
sell.
We gotta have a droid traveling.
Yeah, there's no such thing as Star Wars without it. No. So no,
they're the heroes.
You're at. So next week, let's go. Let's go Ahsoka season 2 next week. I think that's the next logical discussion from here. Ahsoka season 2. Then the following week we'll talk Starfighter, which is just going to be straight up speculation.
No,
which will be a lot of fun. We only know the time period and the lead actor and the director, so we'll talk what we know about that. Otherwise, thank you everyone for watching, guys. Thanks for joining, and we'll catch you next time.